I've wasted money on rifles before. Rifles that kicked like a mule, rattled like a shopping cart, and grouped like I was throwing rocks at a barn door. I've also owned rifles so smooth they felt like cheating, the kind that make you grin every time you squeeze the trigger. In 2025, I can tell you with zero hesitation that there are a handful of rifles that stand above the noise. These aren't hype machines or safe queens. They're rifles that earn every single dollar you put down. Rifles that give back in accuracy, reliability, and pure shooting joy. Today, I'm laying it all out for you. No fluff, no sugarcoating. If you want to know which next-generation rifles are worth every penny, stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why these rifles make sense. And you'll thank me later? When you think about a rifle under $1,000, most folks expect compromise. Maybe the stock feels like it was carved out of a 2x4. Maybe the trigger breaks like a rusty stapler. Maybe accuracy is good enough for deer at 100 yards and not much else. I've owned rifles like that. And trust me, you don't feel proud pulling them out of the case. Then I shot the Christensen Arms Evoke. And suddenly I realized we're living in 2025, not 1995. The Evoke looks and feels like a rifle that belongs in a higher price bracket. It's a bolt action with a carbon fiber stock that keeps it light on your shoulder when you're humping through the woods. The barrel is button rifled and finished with Cerakote, which means it shrugs off rain, snow, and whatever mud your hunting buddy splashes on it when he slips on a log. It's suppressor ready, optics friendly, and the adjustable trigger breaks clean, not mushy. In other words, it's not pretending to be next gen. It actually is. On paper, Christensen promises sub-MOA accuracy. In practice, I've seen shooters put 3 rounds touching at 100 yards with factory hunting ammo. That's the kind of consistency you usually need to shell out twice the money for. One guy I met at the range told me he swapped into the Evoke after struggling with a budget classic rifle that scattered his groups like confetti. First range trip with the Evoke. He said it felt like he was shooting a rifle that cost twice as much. That's not marketing hype. That's what performance looks like. Here's why it earns the worth every penny label. It isn't just the price. It's the fact that you get accuracy, reliability, and modern features that mean you don't have to upgrade, tweak, or apologize for your rifle. You just shoot, and it performs. For the hunter who wants a mountain light rifle that won't rust, or the target shooter who wants something they can grow with, the Evoke is pure value. This little fella proves you don't need a trust fund to own a rifle that feels like it belongs in the big leagues. If you're shopping under $1,000 in 2025, it's the rifle that lets you walk into camp smiling instead of making excuses. That's why it's on my list, and why you'll thank me later. Now let's shift gears. If the Christensen Evoke is the budget hero, the Accuracy International ATXC is the Formula One race car of bolt-action rifles. This thing doesn't just play in the big leagues, it is the big league. The moment you shoulder it, you realize you're not holding a hunting rifle anymore. You're holding a precision instrument that could probably embarrass half the guys at a long-range match before you even dial your scope. The ATXC carries the DNA of rifles that militaries around the world have trusted for decades, but it's been evolved for the precision shooter of today. It's modular, which means you can switch barrels without needing a gunsmith and tune it to whatever caliber fits your mission. 6.5 Creedmoor, 308 Win. Or the flavor of the season. The chassis is fully adjustable, from cheek height to length of pull, so you can dial it in until it fits you like a custom-tailored suit. The 2-stage trigger is crisp enough to make you question every other rifle you've ever shot. What makes it next-gen is not just the tech, but the way it all comes together. You've got ARCA rails and key slot mounting points built right in, so slapping on bipods, weights, or tripods is as easy as sliding them in and locking down. No duct tape, no Franken-mods. The bolt throw is smooth, light, and fast, engineered for speed when you're under the clock. And the whole thing is built like a tank. Drop it in the mud, drag it across gravel, and it'll still run. That's Accuracy International's calling card, military ruggedness wrapped around match-grade precision. I remember watching a shooter at a competition with one of these. The wind was kicking like crazy. Other competitors were fighting their rifles, second-guessing every shot. Meanwhile, this guy with an ATXC was running his bolt like he was sipping coffee, sending rounds downrange that just kept ringing steel. It looked effortless. That's not magic. It's what happens when your rifle disappears as a variable and just does exactly what you tell it to. Now, yes, the price tag hovers around $6,500. That's the cost of a used pickup or a couple months' rent in a big city. But for the shooter who competes, or who wants to invest once and have a rifle that will outlast and outperform everything else in the safe, it's worth it. This isn't a gun you buy because it's cheap. It's a gun you buy because it's the best. And if you've ever wanted to feel what the best actually means in steel and carbon, the ATXC is the ticket. Call it expensive, call it overkill, but once you fire one, you'll never forget it. And that's why it earns a permanent spot on this list of rifles that are worth every penny. If the ATXC is the Formula One car, then Q, the Fix, is the mad scientist's hot rod. It's the rifle you show up with when you want everyone at the range to stop what they're doing and stare. I remember the first time I picked one up. It felt like an AR and a precision bolt action had a one-night stand. And somehow the kid turned out brilliant. The Fix is modular, featherlight, and unapologetically different. You can swap barrels to jump from .308 Win to 6.5 Creedmoor without needing to mortgage your house for a gunsmith. The stock folds, adjusts, and locks up solidly, so it'll ride in a pack without sticking out like a broom handle. The skeletonized receiver keeps the weight down to the point where you wonder if they forgot to install half the parts. And yet when you put it on the bench, it shoots sub-MOA groups like it's no big deal. That's the part that always blows people away. They look at it, expecting some gimmick, expecting style over substance. Then the trigger breaks clean. The bolt cycles with a short 45-degree throw, and rounds start stacking like poker chips at 100 yards. Suddenly the laughter stops, and you realize this funky-looking rifle is for real. It's not just the performance, though. It's the personality. This rifle has character. It feels modern, edgy, a little rebellious. Owning one is like driving a Tesla Cybertruck to a barbecue. Half the crowd will scoff. The other half will beg you for a ride. Either way, people notice. And unlike the Cybertruck, the Fix has already proven itself as a reliable shooter in the wild. Now, at around $3,300, it's not cheap. You could buy 3 budget bolt actions for the same money. But none of those will fold up small, swap calibers, or look like it belongs in a sci-fi movie while actually punching sub-MOA groups. The Fix isn't for everyone, and that's the point. It's for the shooter who wants something innovative, modular, and portable. A rifle that doesn't just work but stands out. In a world full of copycats and Me Too rifles, the Fix is proof that daring to be different can pay off. And if you decide to pull the trigger on one, literally and figuratively, you'll thank me later. Every list like this needs a workhorse, the rifle that just flat out runs no matter what you throw at it. For me, that's the Daniel Defense DDM4V7. If the Q-Fix is the flashy outsider, the DDM4V7 is the steady professional who shows up early, stays late, and never complains. And in the AR-15 world, that's worth its weight in gold. I've put rounds through more ARs than I can count, and I've seen the full spectrum. Some rattle like a box of bolts, some run hot and dirty until they choke, and some just never inspire confidence. The DDM4V7 isn't one of those. This thing is built like Daniel Defense actually cares about whether you survive the weekend class or the 3-gun match. The cold hammer forged barrel is tough as nails and consistently accurate. The MLUC handguard is slim and versatile without adding bulk. And the fit and finish make cheaper rifles look like garage projects. What makes it next-gen isn't that it reinvents the AR, but that it perfects it. Everything about it is refined. The balance is right, the controls are crisp, and the reliability is almost boring. And that's the best kind of boring. I've seen guys drop one in the dirt, shake it out, and keep shooting like nothing happened. Try that with a bargain bin AR and see how far you get before the malfunctions start. One shooter I know ran a DDM4V7 through a weekend carbine course in the rain, mud everywhere, magazines full of grit, and the rifle just kept going. Meanwhile, students with budget rifles were borrowing loaners from the instructor by day 2. That's the difference between a rifle that's worth every penny and one that just looked good on the sales rack. Yes, at around $1,500 to $2,000. It's not cheap for an AR. You can build one for half the price if you're willing to gamble on parts. But the DDM4V7 is what I call a buy once, cry once rifle. You cry when you hand over the credit card, but you smile every single time you shoot it. There are no excuses, no tinkering needed, no upgrades you're forced to chase later. It's solid, dependable, and exactly what an AR should be in 2025. If you want a rifle that feels like a professional tool instead of a toy, this is the one you bring home. And trust me, you'll never regret it. And now we've reached the crown jewel, the rifle that practically defines the phrase next generation. The SIG XM7, also known to civilians as the MCX-SPEAR, isn't just another rifle on the market. It's the U.S. Army's chosen next-generation squad weapon. When Uncle Sam decides to replace the M4 after decades of service, you better believe it's because the new kid on the block is something special. The first thing you notice about the XM7 is its heft. It's not a featherweight like the Fix or a mountain hunter like the Evoke. This rifle feels solid, serious, like a tool designed to fight wars instead of punch paper. It's chambered in 6.8 by 51mm, a hybrid cartridge that delivers more punch and flatter trajectories than 5.56, while still being manageable with the rifle's piston system. That piston setup keeps fouling down, makes it suppressor-friendly out of the gate, and ensures reliability when the environment is trying to kill you. What makes it next-gen isn't just the caliber or the gas system, it's the whole ecosystem. The MCX-SPEAR is modular, able to swap barrels and calibers, and designed to work seamlessly with modern optics and suppressors. It's like SIG looked at every complaint soldiers had about the M4, range, lethality, suppressor use, and ticked the boxes one by one, in civilian hands. That translates into a rifle that feels like the future. Of course, no rifle is perfect. Some soldiers grumble about the weight, about how it feels bulky compared to the M4 they carried for years. But let's be honest, people complained when cars switched from carburetors to fuel injection too. Change always feels heavy. The performance, however, speaks for itself. Accuracy, reliability, and sheer authority downrange put the XM7 in a class of its own, at around $2,500 to $3,000 on the civilian market. It's not cheap, and the ammo isn't exactly bargain bin. But if you want a rifle that represents the cutting edge of small arms in 2025, this is it. Owning one is like owning a piece of the future. Military pedigree, battlefield-proven DNA, and technology that's going to shape rifles for years to come. The XM7 isn't just worth every penny, it's the rifle that sets the penny's value. You buy one, and you're not just buying a gun, you're buying into the next era of firepower. And when you pull that trigger, you'll understand why I saved this one for last. What all five share is that elusive feeling of being worth every penny. Not because they're cheap, but because they deliver. Whether that means hitting steel at 1,000 yards, dropping an elk clean, or just giving you the confidence that your rifle won't choke when it matters. That's the kind of value you only appreciate more as time goes on. So, if you take anything from this, it's that in 2025, the rifles that matter most aren't always the flashiest or the cheapest. They're the ones that balance technology, reliability, and performance in a way that makes you proud every time you chamber around. Try one, and you'll understand why I can say this with a grin. You'll thank me later.